Have you ever felt the world as you know it shatter in an instant? Imagine being a 21-year-old dreamer, living in one of the most exciting cities in the world, Los Angeles, filled with hopes of fame and a bright future. But for Juliana Reading, the unthinkable happened, and her life was tragically stolen from her in the blink of an eye. Her case remains one of the most baffling, haunting, and tragic stories, leaving her family and everyone who followed it searching for answers that may never come. Juliana's journey began in Tucson, Arizona, where she grew up in a loving and supportive family. After high school, she set her sights on California, eager to chase her dreams of modeling and acting. But it wasn't just about fame for Juliana. She envisioned a future where she opened her own boutique, a space that reflected her personality and passions. She wanted to build something that was entirely her own. By 2008, she had settled into a cozy bungalow in Santa Monica, working as a waitress to support herself while pursuing her dreams. She was a young woman full of life and optimism, constantly keeping in touch with her family, sharing stories and updates about her new life in the big city. But those messages would soon take a dark turn, and a simple phone call would bring everything crashing down. On the night of March 15, 2008, Juliana's family could no longer reach her. At first, Patricia, her mother, thought nothing of it. Maybe her daughter was just busy. But as hours passed without a word, an uneasy feeling began to settle in. When Juliana's neighbors reported that they hadn't seen her all day, and her dog was left alone inside her bungalow, panic set in. The silence was deafening. By the time the clock struck evening, Patricia felt a deep fear gnawing at her. Something was terribly wrong. With no answers, she contacted the police to perform a welfare check. The darkness of that night was only just beginning to reveal its horrors. What the officers discovered inside her home would leave everyone speechless. A strong, unmistakable odor of natural gas filled the air, and the stove had been deliberately left on. Yet, the burner was unlit, creating a terrifying ticking time bomb that could have wiped out any evidence. But it was Juliana's lifeless body that truly shocked them. She was found in her bedroom, strangled. The scene spoke volumes. She had fought back, fiercely, with everything she had. Her DNA was found beneath her fingernails, a testament to her desperate struggle for survival. The force of her final moments left an imprint that would never be forgotten. But that's not where the horror ended. The murderer had left behind a trail of deliberate destruction. They had turned on the gas in an apparent attempt to erase all traces of their presence. Had the plan worked, the house would have exploded, leaving no evidence, no justice. But luck, if you can call it that, intervened. The gas didn't reach dangerous levels, and investigators were left with pieces of the puzzle, but no clear answers. As investigators began their search for clues, suspicion fell on Juliana's on-again, off-again boyfriend, John Gilmore. Known for his violent temper, he had a history of outbursts, one including breaking into her home during an argument. But as they dug deeper, Gilmore was cleared. Surveillance footage placed him miles away at the time of the murder. Still, the question remained: who could have been responsible for this vicious crime? The police were left with more questions than answers, but one thing was certain: this was no ordinary case. That's when Munir, a physician with a complicated past, entered the picture. Munir had once been romantically involved with Juliana. He had provided her with a luxurious lifestyle, showering her with expensive gifts and offering her a place in his Beverly Hills home. But as their relationship unfolded, Juliana grew increasingly uncomfortable with Munir's possessiveness and controlling nature. She ended things with him and moved into her Santa Monica bungalow, trying to escape the shadows of a man who had once seemed like the perfect suitor. But Munir couldn't let go. He continued to try to control her life, even as Juliana distanced herself. His obsession grew to dangerous levels, and it became clear that this wasn't just a breakup. It was a battle for control that would end in bloodshed. It wasn't long before Juliana discovered a shocking truth. Munir was married with children in Lebanon. The revelation shattered her, and her father, Greg, was furious. He made it clear that Munir was no longer welcome in their lives. But Munir, ever the enigma, didn't disappear. Instead, he kept his grip on Juliana's life in subtle ways. And until the business deal he had been working on with Greg fell apart. And just days later, Juliana was found dead. The timing was too perfect to ignore. It was almost as if everything had been carefully orchestrated, and Munir's involvement was becoming more likely by the minute. The timing raised suspicions, and investigators began to wonder if Munir had orchestrated the whole thing. Could this be a case of revenge, or was there another motive at play? The evidence was mounting, but Munir had vanished, leaving only a trail of unanswered questions behind him. The mystery deepened, and with every passing hour, it seemed that Juliana's killers were getting farther and farther away from justice. Enter Kelly Supp, a woman connected to Munir, who became the focus of investigators. Kelly had been involved with Munir for years, working with him professionally, and her name had come up during questioning. As more and more details emerged, it became clear that Kelly's connection to Munir was far deeper than anyone had realized. Surveillance footage and phone records linked her to Juliana's workplace in the days before the murder. Then the breakthrough came. Kelly's DNA was found at the crime scene. It seemed that Kelly had carried out Munir's orders, but the big question remained. What was her true role in Juliana's murder? Was she a pawn, or was she more involved than anyone realized? When Kelly was arrested and charged with second-degree murder, it seemed like the end of the mystery. But the courtroom drama was far from over. Kelly's defense argued that the DNA could have been transferred indirectly, causing reasonable doubt in the jurors' minds. They questioned whether Kelly had even been inside Juliana's bungalow. But the prosecution had a strong case. The physical evidence was overwhelming. Her DNA was found in multiple places, including on Juliana's body. It was clear that she had been there, and the pieces of the puzzle seemed to fit perfectly. But when the verdict came down, it shocked everyone. Kelly was acquitted. No one could believe it. With all the evidence pointing to her, the jury's decision was a devastating blow to Juliana's family. The courtroom stood still in disbelief as justice slipped through their fingers. The case remains unsolved. Munir, the man who may have been behind it all, is still at large, living in Lebanon, protected by international laws that prevent his extradition. Kelly, too, walks free, despite the overwhelming evidence against her. The justice system failed Juliana, and no one has ever been held accountable for her tragic death. The bitter taste of injustice lingered, leaving a hole in the hearts of those who loved her. For Juliana's family, the pain of loss is compounded by the bitter knowledge that justice may never come. The questions linger, unanswered, and the memories of what could have been haunt them every day. Munir may have escaped the law, but his role in this tragedy will never be forgotten. And as for Kelly, the enforcer, was she just following orders? Or did she have a personal vendetta against Juliana? The answers may never come. The search for justice continues, but the shadows of this tragedy stretch farther than anyone could have predicted. But here's the chilling truth. This is the reality for so many victims. Despite the evidence, despite the emotional pleas of families desperate for closure, sometimes justice slips through the cracks, and the truth remains out of reach. And that's the ultimate tragedy, the question of whether anyone will ever truly answer for what happened to Juliana Reading. If you found Juliana's story as haunting as we did, don't just sit back, share it. Let's keep her memory alive and the fight for justice going strong. If you want to hear more real-life stories, unsolved mysteries, and cases that will leave you on the edge of your seat, don't forget to hit that like button and subscribe. You never know what story we'll dive into next. Stay sharp, stay curious, and remember, justice is always worth the wait.